Story 1. After some time, it may take months, but as long as you engage in activities that make you happy during the healing process, you should be fine. Story 2. When you have given it enough time, the best way to heal is to feel. Do not avoid the pain. Instead, work through it. Try to understand why things did not work out for the better, and you will begin to see it from a different perspective. Story 3. When it is 2 months later, you can accept the ways in which you could have left, but chose to stay as a lesson for what not to do in the future. Story 4. The pain of heartbreak eventually diminishes, but it may never completely disappear. The memories and emotions associated with the relationship will fade over time, and the intensity of the pain will lessen. However, the experience will shape the individual, and certain memories may still evoke sadness or nostalgia. The goal is not to erase the pain entirely, but to learn from the experience and move forward with a stronger sense of self. Story 5. I heard the guideline is about half as long as the relationship lasted, but it is obviously going to vary. I still have memories of relationships from decades ago. Try to be kind to yourself and surround yourself with people who care about you. Story 6. One mistake that people make, and I see it even in the responses of this thread, is that time does not heal anything. Healing requires effort, and effort takes time. Time alone isn't enough. Story 7. Sometimes days, months, or years pass, and sometimes it feels like never. Some people choose to hold on to the pain because it is the only thing that keeps them connected to that person. Letting go can be difficult. Story 8. If it was real, genuine love, never, it just becomes a dull pain you get used to living with. That has occasional flare-ups, kind of like gout. Story 9. As I have learned through much deliberation and discernment, everything depends on perception. When you understand that you do not conform to the world, but rather the world conforms to you, you will realize that heartbreak, in whatever form it takes, is not the defining point of your entire life. It is one of multiple experiences, and if you allow this heartbreak to dictate your emotions, it will become cyclical. There is always another person or opportunity that will present itself. Do not cling to anything, assuming that if you do not accomplish a specific goal or attain a desired outcome, you cannot proceed. Remember, if you write your own story, you also decide its conclusion. Story 10. You will never forget why your heart is breaking, but in time it does get easier. One morning, you will wake up and actually find it easier to get going, and then you might even find yourself laughing for the first time in a long while. You cannot rush it. Story 11. I like this movie clip about recovering from heartbreak. Story 12. When you stop focusing on the heartbreak and try to move forward, someone who remains fixated on the past will stay there. Story 13. I don't think it ever goes away completely. I believe you always love people, at least a little. That said, eventually you can find someone else, and that makes it okay. You can care about them, but someone else is still the love of your life. You know? Story 14. It does not have a time limit. It stops hurting when it stops. You cannot rush it. Otherwise, you will just hurt yourself more and make it last even longer. Story 15. Honestly, I understand how you feel. I can't provide an answer, but I want you to know that you are not alone. Story 16. For me, with my first love, the one that got away, it was about 20% of the length of the relationship. Story 17. It depends on the type of heartbreak. Some heartbreak comes from losing a potential connection, while others are genuine and difficult to overcome. You don't fully get over it. You simply learn to get through it as a new person. Story 18. It depends on the circumstances. If you have been cheated on, you eventually realize they did you a favor, and you are better off without them. Story 19. When you have processed it honestly with yourself, many breakups are challenging because we often focus only on the good aspects and romanticize the person, making it harder to move on. By being honest with ourselves about both the positives and negatives, we can recognize that the relationship was not perfect. Consequently, a breakup is not a major tragedy. It is merely a clearing of time and space for you to meet someone who is a better fit. Use this time to concentrate on yourself, your life, your desires, and how you wish to improve and move forward. Story 20. It depends on each individual. I can give you an example of two of my friends. One experienced heartbreak and still suffers after 2.5 years, while the other moved on about 3 to 4 months later. I should add that the second friend has been through many hardships and heartbreaks, which has made him stronger and helped him heal faster. Story 21. There's no reliable formula, but the old folks have a saying, if you want to get over someone, get under someone. I don't think it's great advice, but the heart has a capacity to make room for new love, and with time, fresh wounds become scars. Story 22. It varies tremendously from person to person. Typically, it can take months to 2 years, but there are extremes based on personality type and tendencies. For some, heartbreak can lead to long-term depression. The duration also depends on the cause. Story 23. Never is essentially grief. However, you adapt to the idea, and it occupies less of your thoughts. Eventually, you move past it. You cannot just sit and wait. You must force yourself to carry on. Story 24. Have you seen those silly comedies about someone complaining about pain in their right foot, and then someone kicks their other foot? It doesn't stop hurting, you just stop focusing on that pain. Story 25. When you mature, I don't mean that as an insult. It's part of the process in my experience. My advice is to embrace the feeling a bit. Use it to better understand yourself, life, and your experiences. Story 26. It doesn't have a right time. It just happens when you are ready to let go. The pain is not the main problem, but how you cope with it. Feeling sad before something bad happens is a normal reaction. Story 27. It depends on what happened and what kind of person you are. I lost a girlfriend to suicide about 3 years ago. I'm certain it will stay with me for life, as her father and I found her. That is an extreme case. Time will provide ways to heal from the daily pain, but the reminder will likely remain. Do not dwell, find peace. Story 28. In my case, I feel that there comes a moment when other problems in life start to become more important. Being heartbroken feels sad but brief. You stop hurting because you have to tackle bigger challenges, and you don't have enough time to think about it. Story 29. That's enough. It is not a disappointment in love. Stop the nonsense. What I'm asking is something very different, and you know it. End of topic. Story 30. I gave myself 2 full years. I had to accept that the relationship was over long before I stopped fighting a lost cause. Story 31. Varies by individuals significantly. For some, it never ends. Infatuation, however, is often forgotten quickly with a new attraction. Story 32. Tomorrow is always the answer whenever you ask, until one day you forget to ask. Story 33. 3 weeks. Then you can function well enough to dust yourself off and start thinking about everything you disliked about them. Story 34. I feel like it's a form of grief, and grief doesn't really leave you. You have to let yourself adapt to it, or it will change you. Story 35. When you find your next love, when you're excited to see that new person, and when you feel that rush again, you have to put yourself out there. Story 36. It's one of those frustrating things that takes as long as it takes, and then it simply stops being a thing. The 2 relationships that affected me the most. I couldn't say how long it took. It just didn't hurt anymore. I became numb. Not me, but I just didn't feel it. You push through and take care of yourself. Best of luck. Story 37. I am still struggling, but I have found that therapy is helping me move forward, even if it is at a slow pace. We were together for almost 10 years, and it has been 4 months since it ended. Takes as long as it takes. Just be kind to yourself, but don't dwell on it. Find healthy ways to work through it, like physical exercise, therapy, reading, and socializing. Taking some time alone to process is okay, but not for an extended period. Story 38. I suppose it heals when you understand that things just happen, and you cannot go back in time to undo certain actions. Story 39. I have had my heart broken twice. It took several years to get over the second one. I was mostly angry about that experience, so I had to allow myself to process the anger over time. Once I did that and was able to let go of the anger, the pain diminished as I continued with my life. However, I am not fully over the first heartbreak and doubt I ever will be. There is no anger, just a little bit of longing for what once was, and that feeling has persisted for many years. After much thought and reflection, I believe I still hold onto parts of that first experience because it represents my life before the real world came along and challenged me. The fact that things ended amicably probably contributes to why I feel this way 20 years later. High school was over, life was changing, and some things must be left behind. Unfortunately, our relationship was one of those things that we could not take with us into the next chapter. Story 40. They are not truly gone until you stop thinking about them. The duration of their physical absence does not matter. If you continuously think about them, the emotional attachment is revived. If you find yourself thinking about them, try to stop. It can be challenging, but the more you dwell on what could have been or deceive yourself about what might still be, the longer the heartbreak will persist. Story 41. Eventually, it takes work and time. The period of grief is different for everyone and depends on the nature of the situation that triggered the heartbreak. My first heartbreak as an adult took over a year to recover from since I had to navigate it alone, and I couldn't find a friend or a therapist who would understand. Each subsequent heartbreak had different timelines before I felt functional again. Each one still hurts from time to time, but I try not to dwell on it longer than necessary, as I learned firsthand that holding on to that baggage too tightly will only cause more heartache in the future. Story 42. I don't think there is an estimate, to be honest. All I can say is that what helped me was not listening to music. Too many love songs or sad songs can make you feel more down. Definitely cry it out as much as possible. Distract yourself with as many simple hobbies as you can. Playing Fortnite helped me, not going to lie. Story 43. When you don't care. I had a girl end our relationship after 5 years, calling me an abuser and accusing me of using her. She finished by saying, "I'm tired of your depressive behavior," and forgot about my existence a month later. I felt so empty that the person I loved so much at the time treated my presence as if I didn't matter. After my mom died, I was left all alone. Most likely, the pain of a broken heart stops hurting as you stop living. When you feel almost nothing, you don't feel the pain of the person who left you anymore either. Story 44. It depends on the person. However, if it is someone you wanted to work with, it may take months to feel free from physical pain and years to feel fully healed. That's only if you put in the effort. Otherwise, the answer is never. Story 45. The woods are dark and scary, but the only way out is through. This quote from BoJack Horseman fits the situation. Heartbreak hurts, but you have to feel those feelings instead of pushing them down. Otherwise, they won't go away. Honoring the sadness is akin to honoring the relationship. Story 46. You need to feel it every day until it gets boring. It will come in waves over time. One day you will feel fine. The next day it hits you. Something reminds you and triggers certain memories. This will keep happening until one day you wake up, eat breakfast, brush your teeth, and go about your business. Sooner or later, you will realize you haven't thought about it at all. That is the moment you understand you can forget. When you know that's possible, everything becomes easier. Story 47. It never does. I'll just leave this here. I hope it helps someone. It's more about the loss of loved ones, but I find it pretty accurate for heartbreak as well. Story 48. It depends. I have had it go away in a few days, but I have also had it for over 6 years. It really varies depending on you, them, and the relationship. Story 49. I saw a video about heartbreak or grief. It featured a full glass of red wine being run under the faucet, slowly turning from deep red to pink to clear. It made a lot of sense to me. Story 50. I don't think you should set a timeline for when it stops hurting. It will stop when it is meant to, so allow yourself the gift of time. Story 51. I'm sorry you are going through this phase in life. I encourage you to read David R. Hawkins' book, Letting Go. You can find it available for free on YouTube. Story 52. It never stops completely, but it gets a little better each day. And then one day it reaches this point. She's just one of those corners in my mind, and I just put her right back with the rest. That's the way it goes, I guess. Story 53. When you truly get tired of it, when you move on, like you need a quick relationship to bounce back after that one ends, the heartbreak eases. Story 54. Oh, love, I'm sorry you're experiencing this. I have too. I believe your mind is processing a lot right now, especially things that seem relevant to your experience. Finding someone who is sympathetic to what you're going through, but not judgmental, will help. Mainly, just let your mind do its work, and then pay attention to its messages, even if you learn something about yourself that is uncomfortable. You might also consider online therapy. I hope your heart stops hurting. Story 55. Never. It changes you, and with time, you will accept what you have learned and how you learned it. You will watch for it in the future, and it will become part of your repertoire of red flags. The sooner you accept that it is part of who you are now, the quicker the pain will subside, and you will push forward. Story 56. It depends on how you are dealing with the situation. If you are dwelling in your sadness, it may take a while to heal. However, if you find a way to stay productive and engage your mind in other activities, you may not have enough time left in the day to think about who broke your heart. I speak from experience. I am still dealing with my recent divorce, but I feel progress, which is helping me. I am not hurting nearly as much, and I am keeping myself busy in a healthy way. I am not saying you need to live in a gym or start a new diet, but those are not bad ideas either. Just do things you have always enjoyed or try something new. Story 57. It goes away for a while until something subtle, like the color of a woman's nail polish or a particular movie you watch together, plays. Story 58. It doesn't stop. You just learn to accept that the person is one of many. Once you find another person, you'll try to see what they're about. It's kind of like watching a television show you love and then it ends. You look for another one that interests you. Story 59. It takes a while. A very long time at times. The pain is very real, and sometimes it can be permanent. But guess what? Over time, the pain will fade. It will become less and less, and during this time, you can find joy and peace again. There will be healing, a chance to replenish your soul, plant new seeds, nurture them, and let them grow. Tend to your garden, friend. Soon it will grow and you will heal. Remember that with the end of one story, there will be a new one. Story 60. It never really gets easier. It just becomes more manageable to set aside. Give it time and it will improve. Story 61. From my experience, it takes about 2 to 6 months, but it really depends on how quickly you can rethink your life without your ex. Story 62. It never stops. It just remains, and you get used to it. Sometimes it reignites. You may experience episodes years after the heartbreak, mourning with the same pain felt at the moment it occurred. You will crave and miss them, cry over them, and then suddenly one day you will be fine again, forgetting they ever existed. It's a complicated process, one that certainly stays. Story 63. Your heart is you. You control it. It does not have a mind of its own. Own the pain and feel it until you are ready to let go. Then release it. Story 64. Real heartbreak can deeply affect a person. When a couple has been together for a long time, it is common for one partner to pass away within 3 months of the other. That is a truly broken heart. Everything else is superficial. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.